Consumer Reports just dropped a bombshell and nobody saw this coming. John Deere, the brand you associate with tractors, farm beasts, and green and yellow muscle, has been exposed in a way that's turning the pickup truck world upside down. Not with a $90,000 luxury rig, not with an electric experiment, but with a budget pickup truck that feels like it came out of nowhere and somehow makes perfect sense. Here's the wild part. Consumer Reports didn't just review this truck, they uncovered what it actually is and why it exists. This isn't a flashy concept or a farmer's fantasy mock-up. It's a real, stripped down, no-nonsense pickup that quietly checks boxes most automakers abandoned years ago. And once you hear the details, you'll understand why legacy truck brands should be very nervous. John Deere's budget pickup isn't trying to impress suburban drivers with giant touchscreens or mood lighting. Consumer Reports points out that the focus is pure utility, durability, affordability, and ease of repair. That alone is shocking in 2025. While other trucks bury basic functions behind software updates, this thing leans hard into mechanical simplicity. Fewer electronics, proven components, built for work priorities. That's not nostalgia, that's strategy. Consumer Reports highlighted how the truck borrows heavily from John Deere's agricultural DNA, heavy-duty frame construction, parts designed to be swapped in the field, a design philosophy that assumes the owner will actually use the truck hard instead of babying it in a driveway. This isn't a lifestyle pickup, it's a tool, and tools don't need to be pretty, they need to work every single day. What really raised eyebrows was the price target Consumer Reports uncovered. This truck isn't competing with loaded F-150s or Silverado trims, it's aiming directly at people who just want a reliable pickup without taking on a second mortgage. Entry-level pricing that undercuts most modern trucks by a massive margin. No inflated tech packages, no forced upgrades, just a truck you can afford and depend on. The engine choice made Consumer Reports do a double take. Instead of chasing maximum horsepower numbers, John Deere went with proven, under-stress powertrains designed for longevity. Think engines that prioritize torque, fuel efficiency, and easy maintenance over bragging rights. It's the exact opposite of what truck marketing has been pushing for the last decade, and that's why it stands out. Consumer Reports also noted something automakers rarely admit anymore. This truck is intentionally boring in the best way possible. Steel wheels, physical buttons, a cab layout designed to be cleaned with a hose, not a microfiber cloth. It's a reminder of what pickups used to be before they turned into rolling luxury apartments. What makes this exposure even more interesting is that John Deere never officially hyped this truck to consumers. According to Consumer Reports, it's been quietly developed for fleet, agricultural, and industrial buyers. But once the specs leaked, people realized this might be exactly what everyday buyers have been begging for. Something simple, affordable, and honest. And here's where things start getting uncomfortable for big truck brands. Consumer Reports suggests that if John Deere opens this pickup to the public, it could reset expectations overnight. If buyers realize they don't actually need massive screens, overcomplicated drivetrains, or yen $200 monthly payments, the entire market shifts. The most shocking part isn't that John Deere can build a pickup, it's that they may understand truck buyers better than companies who've been doing it for a century. Consumer Reports made it clear, this budget pickup isn't about trends, it's about function, and function never goes out of style. As more details continue to surface, the big question becomes unavoidable. Was this truck never meant to be secret, or was it quietly waiting for the right moment to disrupt everything? Because if Consumer Reports is right, this might not just be a budget pickup. It could be the beginning of a serious wake-up call for the entire auto industry. Consumer Reports digs even deeper, and this is where the story gets even more interesting. They point out that John Deere's approach completely ignores modern truck ego wars. No oversized grills trying to look aggressive. No trim levels designed to upsell you into oblivion. The design language is calm, purposeful, almost stubbornly practical, and that alone makes it feel rebellious in today's market. Then there's the manufacturing angle Consumer Reports exposed. Instead of chasing flashy global platforms, John Deere leaned into existing industrial supply chains. That means shared components, standardized fasteners, and parts availability that doesn't disappear after 3 years. This isn't just about building a cheap truck, it's about keeping it running for decades. That mindset is straight out of farm country, where equipment isn't replaced, it's maintained. Consumer Reports also highlighted how repairability could become this truck's biggest weapon: open engine bays, minimal proprietary software, diagnostic systems that don't require dealer-only access. For mechanics and DIY owners, this is huge. In a world where trucks are becoming lockdown computers on wheels, John Deere went in the opposite direction, and that decision could win over an entire generation of frustrated owners. Safety didn't get ignored either, and this surprised Consumer Reports the most. Instead of overloading the truck with driver assist gimmicks, John Deere focused on structural safety, stronger steel, predictable handling under load, and braking systems designed for real-world towing. It's safety built into the bones, not layered on with sensors that beep until you turn them off. And here's the detail that's making online forums explode. Consumer Reports revealed that this pickup was never designed to impress reviewers. It was designed to survive abuse. Long idle hours, dirty fuel, rough terrain, heavy payloads day after day. That kind of engineering doesn't show up in glossy ads, but it shows up after 200,000 miles when everything else starts falling apart. The interior tells the same story. Consumer Reports described it as deliberately unrefined, and that's not an insult. Vinyl surfaces instead of fragile leather, controls spaced for gloves, storage built for tools, not aesthetics. This is a cab that assumes you're coming in muddy, tired, and focused on the job, not trying to flex on social media. What really changes the conversation is how Consumer Reports framed buyer demand. They pointed out that thousands of comments, surveys, and resale trends all say the same thing. People are burned out on overpriced trucks, burned out on subscriptions, updates, and fragile tech. John Deere didn't invent this demand, they just listened to it. And the timing couldn't be more disruptive. As emissions rules tighten and truck prices climb higher, Consumer Reports suggests this budget pickup could slide into a massive gap the industry created itself. A truck that does less, costs less, and lasts longer suddenly sounds revolutionary, even though it shouldn't be. Behind the scenes, Consumer Reports hints that competitors are already paying attention. When a non-traditional automaker enters the conversation with a product this focused, it forces uncomfortable questions. Why did trucks get so expensive? Why did simplicity disappear? And why did it take a tractor company to remind everyone what a pickup is supposed to do? The deeper Consumer Reports goes, the clearer it becomes. This isn't a side project. This looks like a calculated move built on decades of real-world data from farms, construction sites, and industrial fleets. John Deere didn't guess what people needed. They watched how equipment actually gets used. And if this truck ever goes fully public, Consumer Reports suggests the reaction won't be quiet. Because once buyers see what's been possible all along, it becomes a lot harder to justify paying luxury prices for something that works less and breaks more. Consumer Reports then shifts to the implications, and this is where the ripple effect starts to look massive. They explain that if a budget pickup like this gains traction, it doesn't just compete on price, it rewrites priorities. Automakers would be forced to explain why basic trucks vanished, why entry level now means $45,000, and why durability took a back seat to digital features most owners never asked for. Another detail Consumer Reports uncovered is how John Deere approached emissions compliance. Instead of overcomplicating the system, the truck relies on conservative tuning and proven after-treatment technology already used in industrial equipment. That means fewer surprise failures, fewer warning lights, and fewer expensive fixes out of warranty. It's not flashy innovation, it's quiet reliability, and that's exactly why it matters. Consumer Reports also points out something subtle but important. This truck isn't chasing volume sales. John Deere doesn't need to flood the market. Even limited production could apply pressure, because it proves an alternative exists. Once consumers know there's another way, patience for overpriced, overcomplicated trucks evaporates fast. The potential customer base is bigger than people think. Consumer Reports lists small business owners, rural families, municipalities, and even urban tradespeople who just want a dependable work truck without luxury fluff. These are buyers who don't care about badges. They care about uptime, and John Deere's reputation for uptime is already legendary. Then there's resale value, a point Consumer Reports quietly emphasized. Equipment built simply, with long-term parts support, doesn't collapse in value the way tech-heavy vehicles do. If this pickup holds value like Deere machinery, it could end up cheaper to own than anything else in its class, even if the upfront price isn't the absolute lowest. Consumer Reports even raised eyebrows at how this truck could influence future regulations. When a manufacturer proves you can meet safety and emission standards without drowning a vehicle in software, it challenges the narrative that complexity is unavoidable. That kind of proof tends to spread fast. What makes this exposure feel different is the tone Consumer Reports used. They weren't skeptical, they weren't dismissive, they sounded almost surprised that no one else had done this first. That alone says a lot. When one of the most trusted review organizations leans in instead of pushing back, people notice. Online reaction, according to Consumer Reports' own data tracking, is already shifting. Comment sections aren't arguing about horsepower. They're asking one question over and over: when can I buy this? That kind of response doesn't happen by accident. It happens when a product hits a nerve the industry ignored for too long. And here's where the story gets even more intense. Consumer Reports suggests that this truck could be a test case. If it succeeds, John Deere wouldn't need to become a full-scale automaker. They could stay focused, build one thing extremely well, and force everyone else to rethink everything. Because once buyers experience a truck that feels honest again, one that doesn't fight you, nag you, or bankrupt you, the illusion starts to crack. And when that illusion cracks, the market doesn't slowly adjust. It shifts suddenly. Consumer Reports doesn't stop there, because the deeper context makes this even more disruptive. They compare this moment to when basic compact trucks quietly disappeared from the market, not because buyers stopped wanting them, but because profit margins demanded bigger, more expensive vehicles. John Deere's budget pickup challenges that logic head on, and Consumer Reports frames it as a direct response to years of forced upselling. Another angle Consumer Reports exposed is how this truck sidesteps planned obsolescence. No subscription-based features, no locked hardware waiting to be activated later. What you buy is what you own. That concept alone feels radical in today's automotive world, and it's exactly why people are paying attention. They also highlighted how John Deere's dealer network plays a role. Unlike traditional car dealerships, Deere dealers are built around service, not sales theatrics. Consumer Reports notes that this could completely change the ownership experience. Less pressure, more support, and a mindset centered on keeping equipment running instead of constantly trading it in. The psychology behind this truck is what really fascinates Consumer Reports. It's designed for people who value independence. Owners who don't want to be tied to software updates, proprietary tools, or expensive dealer visits just to reset a warning light. This pickup quietly appeals to that mindset without ever advertising it. Consumer Reports even hints that this could spark a cultural shift. For years, trucks have been marketed as status symbols. This one rejects that identity entirely. It doesn't try to look rich, aggressive, or futuristic. It looks useful, and usefulness is something the market hasn't seen in a long time. There's also a strategic patience at play. Consumer Reports suggests John Deere isn't rushing anything. They're watching reactions, collecting data, and letting the idea breathe. That kind of confidence usually comes from knowing your product solves a real problem, not a marketing problem. The more Consumer Reports analyzes it, the more this pickup feels like a mirror held up to the industry. It forces uncomfortable reflections. How did trucks drift so far from their purpose? When did simplicity become unacceptable? And why are buyers now shocked by something that should be normal? And the silence from major automakers hasn't gone unnoticed. Consumer Reports points out that no one is laughing this off. No dismissive statements, no quick counter announcements, just quiet observation. In the auto world, silence usually means someone's worried. What started as an unexpected exposure is starting to look like a turning point, not because John Deere wants to dominate the truck market, but because they reminded everyone what a truck can be when it's built for work instead of image. And once that reminder sinks in, it's hard to forget. Consumer Reports then raises the question no one in the industry wants to answer out loud. If this kind of truck is possible, why hasn't anyone else delivered it? The answer, according to their analysis, isn't engineering, it's priorities. Modern trucks became profit centers first and tools second. John Deere flipped that order, and the contrast is impossible to ignore. They also dive into real-world use scenarios, and this is where the truck's purpose becomes crystal clear. Farm roads, construction sites, utility fleets, remote areas where breakdowns aren't just inconvenient, they're expensive. Consumer Reports emphasizes that this pickup was engineered for those environments first, not adapted to them later. That difference shows up everywhere, from suspension tuning to cooling capacity. Another surprising detail Consumer Reports uncovered is how conservative the truck's payload and towing ratings are presented. Instead of marketing inflated numbers, John Deere reportedly built in massive safety margins. That means the truck isn't constantly operating at its limit, which translates directly into long longer service life. It's an old school philosophy that most modern trucks abandoned in favor of spec sheet battles. Consumer Reports also highlights the modular nature of the truck, bed configurations, utility add-ons, swappable components designed to evolve with the job instead of forcing a trade-in. This isn't just a pickup, it's a platform, and platforms keep owners loyal because they grow with you instead of pushing you out. Then there's the sound of the engine itself, something Consumer Reports unusually commented on. Not refined, not sporty, just steady, predictable. A machine that sounds like it wants to run all day. That detail might seem small, but for people who live in their trucks, it's everything. The conversation shifts again when Consumer Reports compares this pickup to older trucks that still dominate the used market. Vehicles from the 90s and early 2000s that refuse to die. They point out that those trucks are popular for a reason, and John Deere seems to have studied them closely before building anything. What's becoming clear is that this isn't a rebellion against technology, it's a rejection of unnecessary technology. Consumer Reports makes that distinction carefully. The truck uses tech where it actually helps. Durability, efficiency, safety, but avoids it where it only adds cost or fragility. And as more insiders quietly confirm the details, Consumer Reports hints that this may only be the beginning. Once a company with John Deere's credibility proves this model works, others may be forced to follow or risk losing the buyers who just want a truck that does its job and stays out of the way. Consumer Reports continues by zooming out even further, connecting this pickup to a larger shift happening under the surface. Buyers aren't just tired of expensive trucks, they're tired of being managed by them. Constant alerts, locked features, forced updates. This John Deere pickup, as exposed, doesn't try to control the owner, it serves them. That distinction hits hard. They also point out how this truck changes expectations around ownership length. Most modern pickups are designed around lease cycles and trade-ins. This one is designed around decades. Consumer Reports notes that Deere equipment is often passed down, not replaced. If that philosophy carries over, this pickup isn't something you flip, it's something you keep. Another detail that caught attention is how understated the branding is. Consumer Reports suggests this was intentional. No oversized badges, no aggressive marketing language. John Deere seems to want the truck to speak through performance, not image. That restraint is rare and powerful. The report also dives into how this pickup could reshape rural and small town markets, areas where new trucks are simply out of reach for many buyers. Consumer Reports highlights that affordability combined with durability could reopen access to new vehicles for people who've been stuck buying used for years. Then comes the labor angle. Fleets care about downtime more than horsepower. Consumer Reports emphasizes that simplified maintenance, predictable wear parts, and easy diagnostics could make this truck extremely attractive to employers who rely on vehicles to make money, not statements. There's even discussion about how this truck might influence future design language. If buyers respond positively, simplicity could stop being seen as cheap and start being seen as smart. That kind of perception shift is rare, but when it happens, it sticks. Consumer Reports also hints that this pickup could quietly pressure lawmakers and regulators. When a company demonstrates that compliance doesn't require excessive complexity, it changes the baseline for what's considered necessary. That kind of impact goes far beyond one vehicle, and the longer this exposure circulates, the more it feels like a countdown, not to a flashy launch event, but to a moment when buyers collectively realize they've been overpaying for things they never needed. When that realization hits, the market doesn't ask politely for change, it demands it. Consumer Reports keeps circling back to one core idea because it explains everything. This truck wasn't designed in a boardroom. It was shaped by real work, by environments where failure isn't an option and convenience features don't matter. That origin story gives it credibility no marketing campaign can manufacture. They also highlight how John Deere's long history with regulatory pressure actually works in its favor here. Agricultural equipment has been meeting strict emissions and safety requirements for years without becoming unusable. Consumer Reports suggests that experience gave Deere a blueprint the auto industry somehow lost. Another point that stands out is how intentionally slow the rollout appears to be. Consumer Reports interprets this as discipline, not hesitation. Deere doesn't need hype, they need proof. Field testing, data collection, and incremental refinement matter more than headlines. That approach feels almost foreign in today's fast launch culture. The report even touches on how this pickup could influence younger buyers in unexpected ways. Not Not through tech or styling, but through philosophy. Ownership without anxiety. Repair without permission. A machine that encourages understanding instead of dependency. That kind of relationship with a vehicle is rare now, and deeply appealing. Consumer Reports also mentions how this truck could revive local economies. Independent mechanics, small fabrication shops, aftermarket utility builders. A simpler platform creates opportunity instead of locking everyone out behind proprietary systems. What makes all of this resonate is how quiet it's been. No viral ads, no celebrity endorsements, just information slowly spreading. Consumer Reports frames that silence as confidence. When a product doesn't need to shout, it usually knows what it is. And as speculation grows, one thing becomes impossible to ignore. This truck doesn't just fill a gap, it exposes one. A gap created by years of chasing margins over meaning. Consumer Reports didn't just reveal a vehicle, they revealed a choice the industry could have made all along. And once people see that choice clearly, they start asking the most dangerous question of all: why didn't anyone else do this sooner? Consumer Reports brings it all together by making one final uncomfortable observation. The excitement around this John Deere budget pickup isn't about novelty, it's about relief. Relief that someone finally built a truck without treating buyers like walking profit margins. Relief that durability and affordability weren't mutually exclusive. Relief that work still matters. They point out that the industry didn't lose its way overnight. It happened gradually. Each added screen, each subscription, each trim level that pushed prices higher while calling it progress. This truck exposes that drift by doing the opposite and succeeding on principle alone. Consumer Reports also emphasizes that even if this pickup never becomes a mainstream consumer product, the damage is already done. The idea is out. Buyers now know what's possible. And once expectations change, going back is almost impossible. The final takeaway from Consumer Reports is simple but powerful. This truck isn't revolutionary because of what it includes. It's revolutionary because of what it refuses to include. No excess, no noise, no manipulation, just a machine built to work, last, and stay affordable. And that's why this exposure matters so much. Because when a company known for tractors reminds the world how trucks used to be and proves they still can be, the entire industry has to reckon with that truth.